You guys change
What's
the
the
camera.
Wi-Fi? Anybody?
It should be written on that, inside that, or is it
Not
not?
anymore.
It wasn't. All right, hang on a second. I will write it up there. All right.
That's good.
All right, I'm going to switch to you then. Your machine or the camera?
Let's do that. What do you think? I guess we can do my.
Well, if you're going to do the desktop or.
Yeah, let's do my machine.
All right, you are live. Let's see. I'll write it up here. I'd rather not say it over the recording. You can avoid it.
The motion detector tracking?
Yeah. All right. Well, Doug's putting that up. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out. It's a little bit of a smaller group tonight, which is all right. The next couple meetups we have in August, which unfortunately could have a lot of people traveling. But then the one after that in September should be really good. And Ionic, which is the key platform, and I'll kind of run over all these again in case anyone is not familiar with something. But the Ionic group, who is growing by leaps and bounds right now, offered to send down one of their key customer advocates. I think he's coming down.
Secured or the G?
Oh, GNet. I'm sorry, GNet.
So they're going to send down one of their key customer advocates that does a lot of Angular and Ionic presentations for customers. So the next two should be really good. So I'll put that out there, but they should be really worthwhile. Let's see. So we've been meeting all through 2014, 15, and we're halfway through 2016. So the Nova meeting's been going for a good while. And I'd say our primary should talk about what our vision is, but I think it's primarily just learning together as we go through. All things JavaScript on all parts of the stack is the central theme. And right now we definitely have a focus on Angular, Node, and then Ionic on the mobile side, Cordova, PhoneGap a little less so. So this series that we decided to do, it's a 4-part series, The Road to Ionic 2. And it's primarily, it was of interest to a lot of people, but especially of interest to us. We're planning on porting our Ionic 1 application to Ionic 2 in the fall. And as we looked at it, there's a lot of new technologies involved. And so we were planning ourselves, and we've been continuing to learn ourselves. But the 4 key pieces that we highlighted were ES6, which is the same thing as ECMA 2015. And we covered that last month. The video's up there. There's lots of good resources. We've been having a lot of success with Pluralsight, which is an online training. It's kind of similar to lynda.com, but the Pluralsight courses have really been some of the best for getting into these technologies. So we covered 2016 or ES6 last, and a lot of the new language features. By far, one of the biggest jumps. Tonight we're going to be covering TypeScript. And we'll be going into that. Next month, we're going to cover Angular 2. And what is Angular 2? And again, Mike, and I'll pronounce his name up there when I have it. I got it on the last screen, so I don't mispronounce it. He's going to be coming for the next 2 months. Again, I think they're flying down from Rhode Island. He's on their Slack all the time, so Ionic has a good Slack that you can subscribe to, which is really interesting to keep tabs on a lot of stuff. It's worthwhile. And they have something up there that talked about upcoming meetings, and so I posted the series that were up there, and Ionic said, hey, because I have in there, would love to have guest speakers. And so that should be really good. And then the following in September, he'll come down and talk about Ionic 2. So with that, we'll dive in. I guess first off, who's using JavaScript actively right now for their work? Just JavaScript in general. So, what are you using?
I mean, I've been using it, but I moved to Java now. Right?
So you're coming from a Java background?
Yeah.
Great.
I mean, but I have experience on Angular and
okay.
JavaScript, yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Cool. What about, has anybody started playing with ES6 or TypeScript? And have you been doing Angular 2 as well? No,
Just Angular.
just Angular 1, right? Okay, so same as us. Yeah. Are you doing TypeScript with Angular 1?
I've tried it out, and I've got it. I've used it some,
Yeah.
but I'm not
Good.
not quite there
All right.
to where I like it enough.
Yeah. So, and I am not a TypeScript expert, so I'm sorry you came out for a TypeScript meetup, and I'm not an expert. We're learning this process, and we're really learning it together. But I have been digging pretty deep, and so I think, and I've got a lot of working code. Not a lot of work. I got some working code here, and we'll go through and take a look at the code. But if anybody's explored it some more, anybody else played with TypeScript? You played a little bit with TypeScript, right, Daniel? A little bit. All right. So I've got it up here. We can easily change some code and just run it and play with it a little bit. We're going to walk through 4 of the key concepts. And I think we're going to cover enough that it's the foundation, that kind of minimal foundation of what is TypeScript. How does it relate to ES6? Why is it important? And since the Angular 2 and the Ionic 2 codes we're going to be looking at is going to be in TypeScript, that's why we're doing that at this point in time. You can do Angular 2 and Ionic just in ES6, just in JavaScript, but it's harder because none of the documentation and examples.
You can do it in CoffeeScript.
You can.
That's what I've kind of like started doing more of that in TypeScript.
Right. No, really. React Native. I guess
Yeah,
you can do it too, and you can even do it like in React Native. I've seen some of that as well.
I mean, it's just transpile.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, I thought they were going to be doing documentation in JavaScript as well, ES6.
I haven't seen any yet.
Yeah, I think it's on the roadmap. Kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the kind of thing. If you're learning it now,
Yeah.
90% of what's out there that you're looking at is going to be TypeScript.
Mhm.
So it's helpful to know what it
Guys,
is.
tell me that password isn't right. Anybody else?
Yeah. Is that?
All right, there might be a
Try it.
character on the end.
Try it.
So hang on, I wasn't
Thing on the end of it.
I thought there were.
Something like a fancy little letter than that.
And this could be wrong too, so I need to try that on the end.
It's my
Yeah.
favorite addition.
Yeah.
That's a 2, not a question mark in the middle.
Correct. Correct. Let me confirm. I believe that's what it is, but could also be wrong.
Yeah, it's good.
That's good.
I got it.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so let's jump on in again. As interactive as you all would like to make it. So this was one slide I kept from last month, and just a really worthwhile site. If you Google ES6 compatibility, this is the first thing that comes up. And I am just going to spend. I know who all was here last month. So I had, oh yeah, good chunk of you. Okay, cool. So I'll just briefly talk about this, but this is basically ES6 compatibility, and these are all the different new all the new features and capabilities that are in ES6, and so it's very helpful. Like if we look at, it's good to look at for of loops, which is a new loop, and you can even do that down arrow there and see all the different things that make up that new capability. And you can even hover over here and actually see the JavaScript test that runs in that particular environment to see if this platform has it. And so here are all the compilers and polyfills that support those particular features. Then we have the desktop browsers that support those features, and then server runtime, so Node 6, which I don't know when Node 6, anybody heard of Node 6? I mean, Node 6 is getting stable. I think there are people that are using it, but they don't recommend, they still recommend you use Node 4.4.3, I believe. I could be wrong.
The website's 447, I think.
What's that?
So I thought it was 447 on the website.
Might be. I think AWS supports in their kind of dynamic deployed environments. That's probably why I'm saying that. But Node 6, when it comes out, will have really good support across the board. But then the browser environment for mobile, for Android, even 5.1, there's a lot of things in iOS 9. There's a lot of things that aren't supported. So even on this screen, the resolution, it can be difficult. But just kind of bring that to everybody's attention when we get down into some of the prototypes. even some of the capabilities. So as we are working with TypeScript, in many cases, it's going to be compiling to JavaScript, and it can put out JavaScript features then that target different environments. So if you want to run in an environment that's not ES5, then you usually have to tell the compiler, the pre-compiler, what JavaScript environment you're targeting. And if you're targeting ES6, then there's some TypeScript stuff that you can use that you can't use if you're using an earlier version of ES6. And if you've got to run on multiple different platforms, like if someone could pull up your particular Angular application or jQuery application, TypeScript can be used in a lot of frameworks, not just Angular. If you pull up that application on a mobile browser, then you're going to want to know if you're using, say, properties, for example, in a class, what it's capable of doing. So we'll go through that, and I'll point that out. But I wanted to start with that, saying we still have this multi-platform situation, and the good news is, I think, TypeScript, as well as many of these polyfills, can take care of a lot of that cross-compatibility for you if you're using one of them. Okay. So, why use TypeScript? For me, it's kind of, a scaling factor, but I don't know. Why are you guys interested in TypeScript? Besides, it was the topic for tonight.
I mean,
is anybody interested in topic TypeScript? And if you are, what makes you interested?
I mean, the biggest thing is, I guess, it's sort of like a Dart replacement, where you can use when you start doing node development and you're using all these different modules and you're fishing around and trying to figure out what the heck they do. They come with something called a typings.
Yep.
And so it gives like WebStorm or some other IDE better type ahead.
Right.
It's all about the type ahead.
So definitely the tools, strong tools for large apps, but really static compiling, which gives you all of the IDE support. And we're going to talk about some of the different IDEs. That's a huge one. And just in the little bit I've been doing the past 2 weeks, all the auto-completion, the typing, the instant little red squiggly line telling you that something's wrong is definitely going to save time versus, why is this not working down the road? So I think that one's really huge. I think one of the things that's really nice about TypeScript is that it is just a superset of JavaScript. So any JavaScript is also TypeScript. You can take a JavaScript file, put it and rename the file with a .ts, run it through the compiler, and you're probably going to get the same JavaScript back out. But that means within your TypeScript file, anywhere in there, in your code, you can write regular JavaScript and it still works. And so I find that really nice. I guess other folks like CoffeeScript, there's probably a different argument in terms of why they would like that better. Those don't resonate as well with me, so I really like that. Definitely the tooling support in multiple environments, being able to integrate it even with Node to compile it on demand, things like that if you needed to. You know exactly why you would need to. Mainly it's the IDEs, it's really powerful. But for me, it's really object-oriented design and doing those kinds of things as well. So, I mean, this was the analogy to throw a picture in there. A lot of times JavaScript, if you get into a really big project and you start to get, 50 or 60 different scripts that you're managing, you're trying to introduce some sort of file structure and best practices with your different developers. The minute you get, more than 5 or 6 developers in the project, it gets kind of rough, and it feels like you're fighting this a lot and having to clean up your room an awful lot. And so we're really trying to have more of a Zen feel. And personally, I think TypeScript is going to offer an awful lot of that. I have another slide in here. I don't know where it is, but I'll talk about it now. So it's really talking about things like classes and object-oriented design. And so who has a Java background or a C# background? Yeah. And so really either of those, you've really got classic object-oriented design where you can design classes, you can do inheritance, you can do polymorphism, you can structure your code in packages and really do a lot of things, really work with trying to have high coupling within different modules or classes, low cohesion between them. And frankly, that can be really hard when you don't have a lot of structure in your JavaScript. And so just by introducing and making classes that much more real in an environment, which I think TypeScript takes a step beyond with what we can just do with some of the patterns that we've got available in JavaScript, it makes it more accessible to an average developer. I think that's going to really improve the overall structure of a large software system. So what's TypeScript doing? It's really taking it, and in most of the IDEs that we're going to use in, so if you want to use Visual Studio, that's an awesome environment for doing TypeScript. I'm using WebStorm. You can use a number of other IDEs as well. What are some of the other ones? I think I've got that one down, that one in the next one. Oh, there we go, WebStorm. Sublime Text is got some good capabilities. I haven't tried it. We'll take a look at the TypeScript platform, Visual Studio, very strong environments. And so most of those are going to do compiling of the TypeScript to JavaScript in real time, or when you hit save in a particular file editor. And we're going to look at that in WebStorm and what that looks like. So I thought this was kind of helpful in looking at it. And just some basics before we drill in too much, but just kind of an overview perspective. So if here's TypeScript, we've got a keyword called class that's available to us. And this is defining a car. It's going to have a constructor. And so I've got this constructor keyword that's also TypeScript. I now have this ability to do something controlling visibility, as well as a colon. It's giving me a particular type. And so I can type my constructor parameters that I'm passing in. In this case, I'm giving a car when I create it. I'm going to tell it what kind of engine it is, a V8 or electric or whatever. I'm passing it a string there. We're going to look at more variants of all this. And then I've got a method here, start engine, and it's just printing out that the engine started. If you look at ES6, some of these, this is really defining a function underneath the hood. So when we compile it, we're doing this car prototype, and we're setting the prototype of car, the start engine function that we're creating here. And so this syntax we looked at is actually ES6 syntax, which is in line with what TypeScript is doing. And there are definitely some interesting parallels from last month's presentation where they're doing that as well. Down here, I'm using let. You could also use var, again, depending on whether you're talking ES6 or ES5. Let is an ES6 way of defining a variable. And I'm saying a new car, and then car.start engine. So this is very familiar for anyone coming from a C# or a Java environment in terms of doing things. Whereas here, this is what it actually compiled to. And I actually just cut and paste this directly from the IDE. So we'll get in there and we'll see that. But it's creating a function, it's creating an IFI here. So the function's executing the minute it goes through here. And then that becomes available. I can still, new is still a standard JavaScript keyword for doing stuff. So any thoughts as we go on? So important keywords and operators, so class and constructor, we just looked at that. We're going to look at about half a dozen different examples when we get into the code. So we'll look at some key important things of constructors. But for example, if I subclass a class, I have to call super. So that's something you don't have to do in Java. It'll be applied for you. You get an exception if you don't do that. But in ES6, when we were doing stuff last week, you didn't find that out till you ran the code. Now the IDE is going to tell you about it, which is nice. I can implement interfaces. Imports is for modules. And then interfaces, we can now define interfaces and use interfaces like we would in a lot of other object-oriented. And that gives us more decoupling because now I can set up a particular method that takes, we're going to use this example of an engine. So if I have a class that's an engine and I have to pass in that engine, if I define that method as taking an iEngine, just out of convention saying that's an interface, then now I've given myself decoupling and flexibility. Now I could create many different classes that supported that iEngine interface, and I could allow myself to pass in different types of engines. that can have polymorphic behavior when you call different methods underneath them. So we'll get in, we'll take a look at some examples of that as well. So the imports really goes with the modules and namespace. This is basic modules is a way of just wrapping up a bunch of code. It's kind of like a package in Java. Does everybody know what I said when I say package in Java? Does that work? Yeah. And they recently renamed that in TypeScript 1.5 to namespace. And there's two different ways you can do modules. There's internal and external, and we're going to take a quick look at those. As I was going through it, I started to look a little ahead at Angular 2 and what Ionic 2 is, and just from my perspective, I sort of care about what TypeScript is doing with modules, but I really care how Angular 2 and Ionic 2 are going to be doing modules, and so I'm not spending as much time on that. I just kind of wanted to set the groundwork. Here's what it is. Here's why it's important, and then to set the stage for next month when we talk about Angular 2. Very interested when we talk about Angular 2 about how to do modules and loading of different scripts and organizing your code. We can make methods public-private. We got the REST operator, which we'll take a look at, I think. If not, we'll write some code. Arrow function, which is a different way of writing functions. And so we talked a bit about that last month as well. I can now cast a particular type to something. So if I have, we'll look at it later, we've got an auto and then a truck extends auto. Say I've got an auto in some code, but I want to get to some truck properties. I can cast that auto to a truck by just putting the angled brackets in front, and now I can use that. And again, the interesting thing I thought when I was really doing more stuff with TypeScript is this is all for your IDE, right? It's then going to get compiled to JavaScript, but JavaScript's going to leave a lot of this stuff behind. When you compile the TypeScript into JavaScript, it's not going to keep this cast thing because JavaScript doesn't care, right? It doesn't have the concept of types. And in some ways that's interesting, but I kind of thought that didn't really bother me. I was like, all right, I don't really need that in runtime. This is a design time tool that's helping me write really good code and making me faster as I write my code and helping me communicate with other developers on my team. That's all great. Do I really need that to be enforced in the runtime environment? It's not here, but it's an interesting question. How do people feel about that? It is enforced in a .NET or a Java environment. So I thought that was an interesting observation as I was thinking about it. And this is a way of us providing static typing, colon. We'll see that used in a number of places, whether I'm typing a particular attribute, a variable, or a function, in function parameters, function return types. The colon's kind of the standard way of referencing that. So a quick overview, I think for me anyway, once we got into code, it was a lot more helpful. And the more code I write, the better I'll get at it, I'm sure. So we talked about a few of the different IDEs. A couple of the Pluralsight videos I've been watching the past courses I've been watching definitely use Visual Studio, and I like some of the things I've got there, but I'm pretty much using WebStorm across the board. So I like some of the stuff that WebStorm does too, but it's interesting. It's nice to see. Does anybody use Visual Studio? Use Visual Studio? Yeah. Have you played with the JavaScript support and stuff like that? Yeah. Cool.
One I downloaded just crashed a lot. So
What's that?
it crashed a lot on me.
Oh, did it?
Visual Studio Code or the big Visual Studio?
Okay,
Yeah,
that's good to know.
I wouldn't fool with the big Visual Studio. You know, my experience is unless you have a souped-up machine, it's just hard to run.
Yeah.
But Visual Studio Code.
What's that? I don't know what that is.
That's a real lightweight.
Yeah, the one that's free to download.
It's free. It's more the IDE. It's closer to WebStorm. Not quite as capable as WebStorm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, man, Dan, did you use Visual Studio at all? No.
Oh no, I downloaded the one that comes when you like set up an Azure Play account to do some.
Visual
I
Studio
think
Express.
Yeah.
It's Express, huh?
Yeah, the Express
That
one worked
worked.
okay, but as soon as I would go to the
Something more.
full-blown thing,
Yeah. Interesting.
it's nothing but trouble.
That's good.
And it took forever to do that.
Interesting. And so this is the TypeScript play. So, you know, the TypeScript main homepage here you can go to, and, you know, that's where I got those bits. And there's this pretty good site, lots of good, oh, there you go. Visual Studio Code is the one I think is the quick one. And they do have WebStorm, so that's pretty good. I should have copied that and put that on my slide. That would have been better. But so it's got some good stuff there. It's got some samples. It's interesting. This playground I thought was kind of cool. And so here you can see, and so if we code things in real time, you can do like age is a number. Oops, yeah. And so, did it save it in real time? Or do I have to-
Yeah, it was moving around.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Cool. It's hard to present and do that in real time.
Oh, yeah, I don't see where it went.
I don't either. So it would be a good, cool thing if it worked well.
Maybe run
Do you
something?
hit run?
I think Run will actually run it. Maybe I have to click the JavaScript. Yeah, so it just says to say hello, but
It's got a, what's the X or the black bar off to the right? Is that just showing you where you are? On the other, in the middle of your screen?
right here.
Yeah. What's that?
I don't know.
It's an error.
I see it was just moving.
Yeah, I saw that. Oh, I wonder if it
There it
doesn't.
is, there's
Yeah,
that age.
it's not actually defining it until I actually do something. Let's try that again. Number, like that. And so then I would have to come in here and do age, number. I can come here and do this dot age. It's got some nice stuff. That's why. Because really this whole thing up here is just TypeScript and setting up TypeScript, but it's not until I define it. It should have been age equals age. It's not until I do that in the constructor that it really sets up the ES6 constructor that you see it. So anyway, so that's kind of cool. So you can go back and forth and see one thing typing another, and you can play with that pretty easily. And as I mentioned before, JavaScript is TypeScript is just a superset of JavaScript. So, okay, so let's go into actually look at some code and look at typings and variables and functions. And so if I come into typings, and it's just my screen that's being displayed, right, Doug?
Yeah.
See if I can do it so you guys can see what we're doing. So just an example of some various things. And if you want to try anything, or if anybody else has done anything else that's interesting as we go along, type whatever here. This doesn't have to be just what I want to come up with. But if I just type a variable like person, and I don't set it to anything, it's now undefined, right? And if I did console.log there, I would see it was undefined. But then, so if I set person here to Doug Schnelzer, underneath the hoods, TypeScript is considering that an any. So an any is a type that can be any different type. Whereas here, when I do variable another person is Bob Smith, then another person is now a string, because as when I assign it, it sees that it's an actual string. And so another person's 5. And if I just I want to make sure I can kind of, what I was doing before is I was just kind of running things as we went. And so I didn't see a way just to right click and run it on the file. I don't know if anybody has that, saw that.
WebStorm?
Yeah. I think you got to set it up with a config. So, you know, if you can see down here, I just set it up and I'm just running it with Node. And so if anybody wants to follow along and you're not familiar with what you'd have to do in WebStorm, is you come in here and you just set up a Node runtime. And so each time I wanted a new class, normally you wouldn't have lots of different entry points. And I'm sure we could set up some unit testing as well if we wanted to do something a little more structured. But for just playing with it, this kind of worked well. So I've got this configured here. So I can just kind of hit now Control R, and it will run whatever class I've got up here configured to run. So we got another person as 5 there. So if I try and make another person here a 5 there, now I'm going to get some highlighting, and it says type number is not assignable to a string. And so there's an example of where it's coming in and it's doing that, whereas it's letting me make person equal a 5 there. And so now if I run it,
Line 14.
what's that?
Line 14.
Yep.
Out at the end.
Oh, thank you. And so, yeah, the code completion, as we constantly get in, it's not guessing at all the different JavaScript, is really nice. I'm really going to get addicted to that class. So that doesn't work. We can't do that. We got to put that back as, oops, sorry. Something about typing when you're looking to the right is a little bit harder. So I can do that, and that fixes it. If I wanted to, I could make this person up here. If I wanted to actually type it and not make it an any, I could do that with a colon. And if I make this a string and hit save, now it's not a type any, and now person here is now complaining. And so that's just kind of a quick look at, you know, typing and the different types that are available to us. So if we come down here,
You've got the N on person.
thank you. Oh, and while we're here, let's take a look over here. I know it's small. I couldn't find an easy way to make this font bigger. I can make the main text. But so right under here, under typings.ts, we're going to see that it's kind of creating my JavaScript for me in real time. The Visual Studio had a way of putting those side by side, which is really nice. So the way we were looking at the playground, and you could type in one, hit save, and see it appear on the other. There might be a way to do that here too. I started.
Split the screen.
Yeah, how do you split screen?
Right mouse click there. Split to other view. Split
Split vertical.
vertically, and then click back in the other one to open up the other file.
Cool.
But I don't know how well it'll
Let's find out.
change as you type.
So if I say person. Save it. Yeah, that's not bad.
That's a little bit of a delay.
Yeah, about 5 seconds away. That's not bad at all. Okay, thanks. I'll leave that up there. I'll make this a little bit bigger. There we go. Okay, so here's age is a number, score is numbered. Here's making something that typed as a Boolean. This rating is still going to be a number here, even though we didn't say, because we're assigning it a number at assignment. Arrays, we can do the same thing. So since we can make then, this is going to be a type of string array, exactly the same as it would be in Java. And then first person is going to be a string. Even if first person, if I don't define it as a string here, and I do that, that's going to work. But now if I take, actually that won't, yeah, that's going to define it as an any. But say we do this, then now it knows that names 0 is a string. And so if I try and take first person now and assign it to a number, it should say, I don't think so. And it does complain. So it's just kind of following that typing. And it's going to be smart. If you're returning from a function 2 numbers added together, then it's going to know that's going to be a number, and it will type whatever parameter variable that you're assigning to that return type. It'll be a type number. So it's going to do quite a bit of introspection as you go along.
Is there any difference in the behavior what we just saw if you changed all those varies to lets?
Let's find out. I do not think so. I think it should be exactly the same. So we have that as a let. So that person, yeah, it's letting us do that. And another person, and we can't. Yeah, it's complaining there. And if we make this a string, yeah, it's complaining about all this. So no difference, at least from that perspective. Very good. All right, I guess I got to keep it and save. It looks like the, yeah, Good, good, good. Everybody's happy. Okay. We can define a particular variable with a type of object, and that'll be an object literal that we're assigning it to. And then it's going to enforce some sort of object literal. So I can have a function here, and I can define a function, and the input parameters for that particular function, I can type what those parameters are going to be. And in this case, this is actually going to return two numbers multiplied by each other. It's going to return a number. So I don't have something in here, but if I did a var, we'll call this area equals my function, and I'm going to pass it a 3 and a 4, 3 and a 6. That's good. And now if I try and take area and say that equals area and save it, I'm trying to be smooth. It's saying string's not assignable to number. So that's just an example of seeing the return type here is setting this type to be a type area. And so if I wanted to override that, I could come here and actually say, no, I really want it to be an any. And then it should say, okay, fine, go ahead and do that.
Will my func be an any if you do an if then else and have two different returns types?
That's a great question. If h is greater than 5, then return that else return true. What's that? Oops. So my function is happy.
Function's got a line, right?
What's that?
My func equals function, you know where the line is?
Ah, yeah, there is.
There it is. No best. It exists.
Yeah, so it's complaining about that. That's really good.
So then you can say my func colon any.
Yes. I think you put the, where do you put the colon? After my,
Yeah, function.
Might be function colon or
I
something.
think it's there. Yeah, that's it. That's where it goes. So the type goes after the parameters. So that solves it. So yeah, it's actually forcing you, if you're going to do something funky like that, which would not be a nice way to write a function, right?
Yeah, when I first
You
read
shouldn't
it
do
all,
that.
I thought you had to do that. I thought you had to put the colons everywhere. And that's what sort of turned me off. This is nice. Where
Yeah, no, it's going to try and
Okay.
figure it out all the way along as we go. And so this one, oh, I guess, did I have to? Yeah, I must not have checked that when I was doing stuff before. All right, there we go. All right, and so area, I could do all that. And so I think everybody's getting the idea with that. This is using the arrow function syntax. So this is basically exactly the same as this was up here before I put the if then else in there. But it's nice. It's saying that my function too is going to be a function, and it's going to return height times width. So
I've read that about 4 or 5 times, like that.
Yes.
Syntax, it still confuses the crap out of me. I understand it, but it's
Yeah.
just, it won't click into my brain.
So it's getting there. When we did ES6 last time, the really significance to using the arrow function is not to be concise, but it changes the behavior of the this parameter.
Yes.
So the this parameter, the arrow function, will be the context of this function itself. Whereas if you use the function keyword, the this parameter will be the calling of the execution environment outside of the function, which isn't as usable. And so they couldn't change the behavior of the keyword function in ES6 because that would have broken all your ES5 code. And so they've tried to do 2 things in one. Let's use something cute that's shorter, since we do use a lot of functions. But the big thing for us is it's changing the behavior of this. So we'll be aware of that. I don't know, it's starting to get there. I've been playing with it for about 3 or 4 weeks, and I'm starting to get more comfortable, but I hear you. And it's also even more painful because then if we get rid of, if we only have one parameter, then you don't even need the parentheses.
Yeah, I've seen some interesting use cases using it for an underscore replacement.
Maybe you don't need a 6, but it's not liking that here. So maybe you do have to. Let's see if we get rid of the typing. Yeah, interesting. So if you type it, which would be a TypeScript, then TypeScript is requiring the parentheses.
Yeah.
ES6 by itself does not require parentheses if you only have one parameter. And it also doesn't require the,
Or no.
what's that?
Or no parameter.
No parameters, no. If no parameters, you have to have them because you could do this, but you have to do that for no parameters. So, yeah. So anyway, interesting stuff. Good conversation. Good questions. Is that happy? Why is it not happy? I just need it saved.
I did like the H.
There it goes. Now it's just taking a second. Interesting. And so here's an example of an arrow function not returning anything. And so that would be the same thing as me defining, well, I can actually look at greet me. The greet me is equal to a function that's just returning console.log. So if I wanted to do that with that kind of notation, that's what it would look like. Just kind of interesting. Oh, no, that's the second one. The first one's not doing anything at all.
So it just got rid of it completely?
So you're declaring greet me as a type function.
Yes.
What is it benefit?
Oh, yes, it is
That
talking
takes-
about the method signature, right? So if I were to come in here and do that and then say, thank you, and say return 5, now it's going to complain, or it should complain, because we said we were going to not return anything. Is that right? No, that's not right. I think these are two different ways of writing.
Maybe to care that it returns something. Maybe to change the.
Yeah, we're not defining a functional interface yet. So these are two different. So we're basically just redefining greet.me there with the second function. It's not related. This is a standalone thing that really does absolutely nothing.
So that colon there is saying greet.me is now of type function and it returns a void. We're basically functionally saying that can be string instead of everything to the right of the colon.
Right.
You want to be a string, but in this case we're saying no, you're going to return
A
you're going to
void.
be a function that returns void.
That's correct.
So what does that mean exactly? Like, what is a function? What is a function doing there?
Yeah, as a type.
This right here, line 53.
I'm
You
talking
could
about
do
line 53.
Yeah.
You do a print type of greet.
So that's saying greet.me is a function that takes a string and returns void.
Like, is the function really doing anything there on line 53?
Could you
No.
say that it returns a number?
Yeah,
Takes-
say
or
it
takes
returns a
and
string and
returns-
see if you get an error.
string.
then.
Here?
Yeah.
String there.
And I mean, you need to get rid of 55 to 50 or like
There you go.
Number is not assigned to type. Yeah, a string. So if I do
Didn't
that.
mind it was void because it just.
Interesting. Okay, well, it was worth pursuing for a few minutes.
So those are like function prototypes in C#.
That's
Yes.
interesting.
It's just
Yes.
like C#.
Yeah. We're going to see more of those here. Some more examples we do.
And I'm trying to wrap my head around how that's useful.
What's that?
It's extremely.
I think it's more, you get more into classes, so we're going to
You could
be able
say
to
what-
define interfaces, and we'll be able to define method interfaces on our class, operations.
When you start writing JavaScript, you realize it's all about callbacks
Yeah.
and promises and everything. And so you can type the callback. You can say you're going to give me a callback that I'm going to call.
Yes.
Takes a certain number of commands.
I think you just define the contract here with taking that
Yeah.
on the parameter types.
Okay,
Callback-
yeah, so
Callback
yeah.
contract.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I can see that.
Yeah, that's very.
And it's the same pattern when we define an interface with operations.
I have a question there. In line number 50, like, what if the function is having multiple lines? So right now it has only height times width, right?
Yeah, so we just put angle brackets. So we could go like that. And now we can have multiple lines. So then we also have to use the return keyword, sorry. So we could do that, we could do,
Oh, to see if
Right.
you want
Once
to
you
put
do
one-
curly braces, you have to do.
yeah, once you do the curly braces, you have to do the return. And once you do multiple lines, you have to have curly braces. Right?
Yeah, I'm fishing through my head languages. Because I know there's one that lets you put a comma if it's all in the same line. You can have a couple of
I have not seen that.
copies.
So that would work as well. Good.
I mean, that casting only matters in TypeScript.
Yes.
Yeah, so you're like, your whole team would have to write it, somebody else brings a function in, then it checks and says, no, there's something wrong. But as soon as I compile it to JavaScript and it gets off the road and somebody else tries to use it.
Yeah, TypeScript really is good insofar as the entire team is using
Yeah.
the TypeScript file and not using the JavaScript files. So really, the
So
JavaScript
there's-
files are like artifacts just as you're going to runtime. It's like treat your JavaScript files as class files.
Mhm.
You're not going to go do anything directly with them. And then if you do want to bring in another package, like an external library, like jQuery or something like that, then you bring in a typings file, which defines all that, and you can include that typings file on the top of your TypeScript, and it will give you all the different completion and enforcements and everything for that whole library. And so
Yeah, so
those-
it's like you publish this other file with your compiled JavaScript file types.
Ah.
It's like a whole nother dependency management. Yeah, it's part of Node or NPM and all that stuff.
typings, is it?
I had it set up on. There's a way to set that up in WebStorm. Yeah,
There's a one site that's got all those up there. I should have had that link in there. I'll look for that in a few minutes. All right.
That will be real important when you start actually using Angular, and because it'll all be
Yes.
IDE will get the typings file from Angular and Ionic
Yes.
and all that,
Yes.
so that it knows how to do browser.
Yeah. So you know if we do definitely typed. That's what I was looking for. So this is a repository that you can download the typings for just about anything. Where do they have? Can you search this repository? Hopefully they have a search for you somewhere.
Angular.
Yeah. Sorry to truncate this directory to 1,000 files. So there's a lot of different typings available out there. I'm sure somewhere in here there is a spot for us to search that. And it's very easy. You just basically put this, so you have to have that file, you have to download it locally within your TypeScript source. And then you put this comment at the top, and then TypeScript will grab that comment, go look for this jQuery.ds.ts, and we'll pull that in, and there you have typings for all the, and auto completion and all that stuff that we love for our third-party libraries. It's like that.
Does TypeScript also unify the JS files? Like,
Not TypeScript itself. No,
So
no, the
we
TypeScript
have-
we're looking at is full-blown, so I don't think there are any options. You mean can it, or definitely by default it does not. So we could look at the compiler,
What was the question?
does the TypeScript unify the JS files?
Oh.
it definitely does not by default.
You can go to your in WebStorm. That would be WebStorm.
Yeah, if we can find the compiler documentation. Where's the TSC, right? Is that it? No, it's the TypeScript compiler. NPM. There might be.
Yeah, I think we might need a separate package manager.
On error, arms, compile. I don't think it does. Compile strings, arguments. I mean, that's very cursory, but I don't see anything there. So I think, like, we have a gulp task and we're using another NPM package. So I would believe that you have to take your TypeScript, let it generate JavaScript, and then minify the JavaScript as a separate. We would do it as a gulp task. Daniel, your thoughts on that?
I think you're right. I'm pretty sure because it's complicated enough in WebStorm, you have the map file. So when you're debugging and you're stepping through, I mean, it's running JavaScript code, and WebStorm is reading the map file to figure out which line of TypeScript to highlight, because it might not be the exact line of code. It's transpiled into another language.
Right. So let's go and take a look at classes. So classes, you know, why do we use classes?
Open close principle.
Huh? What's that?
Open close principle.
Open close.
OCP. It's like the first object-oriented design.
Encapsulation. You mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. So I mean, I think it's important, because if you don't have some sense of feeling that classes and interfaces are important in your software design, then you may not care that much about TypeScript. And there are other design patterns you can use within JavaScript to do all these same things, but it's more confusing for me. So, but I mean, that's important. There's nothing that says you have to use TypeScript. I would use it because I think classes are a much more intuitive way to design software. Things like inheritance, encapsulation, low coupling, and high cohesion, or in the fact that it can be typed, all the stuff we're seeing in the editor details, I think that's wonderful. But it is important as you get in talking to different people about that. If folks don't believe in that, then it's not going to be interesting to them. So let's talk about classes. How do I open that one in that browser? Can I drag it in there?
It's whichever one you have highlighted.
There you go, I can do that too.
Oh, cool.
Make it a little bit bigger for you.
You learn how to do things.
Yeah, real time, right? That's the power of having the group. So very simple here. We got a class. This is what we're looking at when we looked at a little bit in that previous slide. But so I can have a car. It's got a property here. Again, this is just for TypeScript. This particular line 4 is not resulting in any JavaScript over here. And then I can have a constructor, which can have an engine. And this is what's actually setting my property. It's this engine equals engine. I've got another constructor here. I can use this public keyword, and then it's automatically going to set that for me. That public is gonna create this engine equals type string, or engine of type string variable declaration, and it's gonna set that for me. So like the second car, I can say new another car is electric, and if I print out my second car engine, when I come up here and go to classes, it should say the second car is electric. So that actually shows that this property is actually getting set. So that's kind of just a shortened way of setting up a property using that public keyword in your constructor.
So if you comment out line 4, it'll give you
If I come out line 4.
line 7. Okay.
Yeah. Property engine does not exist. Yeah.
Is it like the default access just like in Java?
No, you just have really public and private, and that's it. But there's no default package level scope. So in most of the examples in code I've seen, I haven't seen people using the private too much. But there is a getter and setter function that we'll take a look at. We can play with the private. I'm not sure if the example here I've got has that private, but my classes too, we have that example. It's currently happy. So if I take out this public and save it to.
Does it default to public?
What's that?
I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
Does it default to public?
So this here, where car engine.string, I can do first car.engine, so I can access it. So yes, it is. It's public scope in terms of accessibility. The public keyword, the other car here, though, this property does not exist. So when I define this public here, it's really just saving me from having to type this and this. They might be doing something else too, but I can't see what else it's doing. my understanding is it's just a shorthand of, yes. All right, so that's the second card. Let's drill a little deeper here into classes 2. And so, yeah, so if I'm over here and I click here, and then I double click here, that's another way of doing it, right? Now I've done the 2 ways for the multiple windows. All right, so some various things in here. So, okay, here's a private. So here now I've set this engine, and so you can't directly get to engine publicly. It's not available, this underscore engine, but I'm defining a get engine and a set engine, and I can do car.engine. And when I do car.engine, yeah, can I make it bigger? Can you guys read it? You guys find it smaller proof.
Is the underscore engine just a convention?
Just convention.
Pay
Yeah,
attention.
that could be whatever we want it to be, as just a convention there. So when I do car.engine here, that's going to call this get engine here. And so let's test that really quick. If I come up to classes, oh, what the heck? Oh, I bumped the table and didn't like the HTML. Sorry. Anybody?
You done that? Not sure.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around typing, but that's okay. Like I get the type of like type string.
So that's
yeah,
good.
Like
We're
the
good.
typing
We're
fonts, which is nice.
You
Like, I
just share
get
your
the
desktop again.
Pulling in so that way you can do the autocomplete, things like
That's
that.
good.
What is that otherwise? Is it just making sure that your TypeScript code knows about these other external packages so that way it can refer to it inside of itself?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I got that. Yeah.
They used to do that with Dart.
Mm,
They
yeah.
use Dart. The first started, they had like Dart downloads for jQuery and a bunch of other, because Dart was a typed language too, that they kind of basically kind of given up on it and going with Microsoft's TypeScript.
Okay. So here we go. So if we run this, as I was trying to change this to classes 2, so we can actually run this, and we should see car engine is electric. So we see, I created a new car here in line 20, passing in electric, and so when I do car.engine, it is getting electric, just to kind of prove that it's actually calling this accessor method. I can just hard code that to be V8, and if I run it again, you can see it says car engine is V8. So it's calling the accessor method, same with setter. I assume if I were to get rid of this, I haven't tried that yet, and now I try and call it again, car is undefined, right? So since there's no getter method, it's not giving you access, so I can totally hide a particular variable. So pretty standard. But very nice to have. And then obviously in the setter, you could do some checking, which is what we like to do to make sure we're keeping our classes nice and clean. I can define an engine here then. And so if I want to take this class engine now, and so instead of my constructor taking a string, I can say, no, it's going to take an engine. And so if it's going to take an engine, when I do a new engine, I'm going to have to create a new engine. So I can say new, engine. And the engine takes, I should get auto completion. Yep, I do. So horsepower. So we'll say 250 and an engine type of V8.
Okay, that's nice.
Very good. And so now we've got a new engine. And I could have created a new engine outside of the constructor. I'm just creating a new line there. And if we hit that again, I guess we don't have a toString. Or what's it doing that? It would be nice if it worked. Engine is not a function. Oh. This is not a function, it's a class.
Does TypeScript care about where you're putting it?
Yeah, maybe. Good.
Like this is stuff happens.
What happened? Type engine is not. Oh, is not a file to type string. Ah, this was the problem. So I have to change. This needs to be an engine, and that means my get needs to take an engine, and my return needs to return an engine. And are we happy now?
Yeah, I missed something. You have a member variable on line 14, and then you have a getter and setter. Is that for the same member?
Not very much.
You have
So on line 14, I have a, this is what's actually defining the property in JavaScript, right? So this is going to create over here this line 16 in the compiled JavaScript. And this is the way you really set up a class contained variable within just JavaScript. So this up here is just TypeScript typing of that variable. And then these are the accessor and setter methods for this property. Is that making sense?
I mean, I don't see where, because you're using underscore. I thought you wouldn't. It just looks redundant.
Oh, we could define.
Which one is it really using?
So this is the actual variable. This is the actual engine. Well, this dot. That should be an underscore. Shouldn't it?
So further down.
That's a good question.
On
I would have thought.
line 29. Let me see the transpile code on line 29. So
Right here?
Oh. Where
car.engine.
engine.
So it's defining
It
that.
would definitely return that this engine, not the getter.
Doesn't it complain since the engine without underscore is not defined?
That still works.
Yeah.
So I think we were probably, without that one underscore, we were skipping the whole TypeScript capability. Does that make sense? Because we really want that to be this property, this dot engine. It would be this one up here.
Now, if I'm wrong, we're not using setter in this code, right? And we're defining.
No, we're not defining the setter.
Let's do a setter.
All right,
on
sure.
line 29.
Yeah.
And then you
So
can change
now
it
I
back.
have to do a new engine. So
We want to do it under line 29.
let's see if I can do Control-Alt-V. Yeah, variable. Hey, look, that was pretty cool. My engine, right? Come on. Oh, that was sad. There we go. All right, so we do that. And so now you want to set my engine to be something different, right? So we're going to say my engine is now equal to.
Or card engine?
Oh, yeah, I have to do that. Yes. Well, I'm going to have to set it. So yeah, car.engine, and then I need to set it equals an engine. So we can just do new engine. And now make it 200 and make it electric. Okay, and so now if I come up and do that.
Shouldn't that be context engine?
What's that?
It was red for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So then what's the code? Let's see the.
Oh, I don't want it. No, I just wanted to print it. Sorry, that's not what I was trying to do. I was just trying to print it again.
Oh, I think it's
Oh,
because
two
car
constant.
dot underscore engine, right?
No.
Car dot underscore engine, right?
No, it should be car.engine. So now let's print it there in car.engine. Now is, let's try that. Yeah, that worked.
So let's take a look at the code on the right. Down there.
No, oh, we're here. So it's right in here. So it's just doing car equals new. It's pretty much exactly the same thing. So the difference is TypeScript's going to enforce those types.
But it really, so if you put a console log before line 22,
Before line 22.
yeah, in the setter,
Yeah.
did it really call that?
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
Because it doesn't look like the code would have been that. Unless it's in ES6.
It's showing me mostly that you need to learn the shortcuts of my IDE.
What's that?
I said this is showing me mostly I need to learn the shortcuts of my IDE better.
Why is that? Oh, because I'm doing.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm terrible compared to a lot of you guys around here. So yeah,
So
we're
did it.
definitely setting the engine once. Yeah, that makes sense because we're only setting it once. The first time was in the constructor, so it's definitely doing it.
Yeah, because the original time it just used the constructor. Right?
That's right. So it's not going
And
to use a
then-
setter and constructor.
Yeah.
See, but it's funny because that's because in the JavaScript code it doesn't make any reference to some kind of.
Yeah, so that's interesting. This is using an
Oh,
object.define
define
property, and that's where
Oh, it's a prototype.
the whole reason so object, what is it? Object.define property, and so you want to come over to here and come down to define property, and it's not supported by a lot of environments.
Is that an E? So that's ES6
I believe it is.
versus 5. Okay.
No, I saw it before when I was in here, but I had a hard time finding it even the first time when I wasn't
Would be what prototype?
classing, I would think. Not date type. Functions, generates functions, bindings. Let's let class. You see it in there?
Accessor
Prototype.
properties. Accessor properties, maybe?
Where is that?
A few down right there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
So it says Polyfill's TypeScript does support that, but it's still putting out. So is that valid ES5 code? I'd have to look it up. Probably should just use the original search to find define property. It'll tell me where it is in here. I have a hard time searching that. Oh. What was it? Properties?
Accessor properties.
Define property, right? There it is. Yeah. And it should tell us in here. TypeScript is standard in 5.1. So it should work in a lot of environments. I don't know if there's some environments where it does browser compatibility. That's pretty good. So IE 9. So anyway,
Okay.
but you do have to be supporting at least ECMAScript 5. So if it's below 5, that's not going to work. And I did, so that you guys know,
Well, it might not. It might. So in your.
I did have in my
your-
target, my TypeScript. If I take out this target ES5 -- target equals ES5 right here in my command line options, I should do that.
That might change.
Copy
change
that.
generated code.
I don't think so. I think it's just TypeScript enforcement. Yeah, and so now if I hide our engine, oops, says accesses are only available when targeting ECMAScript 5 and higher, but it doesn't tell you how to target ECMAScript 5. That takes you, you know, not too much. I think I got it in about 15 minutes. Stick that back in and hit OK.
So what resources do you use to set up your IDE, set up WebStorm for TypeScript?
I did nothing. I created a new file that just ended in type TS, and it said, do you want to support TypeScript? And it did the whole TSC compiling out of the box. This is the latest version of WebStorm, but it's everything. The only thing I had to do was that little extension I just showed you. Everything else is out of the box functionality. And I didn't even create like a TypeScript project. This is just any project will work. It's just a .ts file.
I just started, it didn't show a TypeScript project there.
No, so just create a node project. I just created a blank, or just a blank project, or a node project I created. But even that, I'm not using anything node specific here. And so any project that should work there, it's just some of those projects give you a lot of stuff that you don't need. All right, we're getting there. So that was actually good. So here's a little bit of inheritance. So I can have a class auto that's got an engine similar to what we were doing up above. And now I have a truck that extends auto. And now this truck is going to extend, have a new attribute just for truck that's 4x4. And then its constructor is going to take engine and 4x4. You have to call super engine. And whenever you subclass anything, you have to call super period. You can't, like the default constructor in Java, it'll automatically create. The only time you don't have to put in super is if you don't put a constructor in. Then it will create a constructor with super with no parameters for you. And so we got some few things like here. I think this will actually show you the different classes. And if I override a method, I can do that as well. Here's an example of defining an interface, the callback functions that we were talking about before. So if I wanted to have an engine that I pass in, and that engine is going to have two methods, it's going to have a start and a stop. Then I can, this start is going to take a callback. That callback method has to provide me a Boolean and a string, so a start status and a string. The callback can't return anything when I call it, and I'm not going to return anything when they call the start method. So there's a lot there. But that's where it got into this is a good example of, getting some more control over the callback process. And so with this iEngine, we should be able to take this then instead and say, all right, now if I want my auto now to take and be an iEngine instead of an engine, I can do that there, do that there. This engine, that's good. Truck now is going to, it doesn't like this because it says it can't take an engine, it has to take an iEngine. So this one has to be an iEngine. And everybody should be happy. Yeah, everybody's back to happy. And so now I could have different types of engines that I could pass.
Did your engine inherit or implement iEngine? I would have thought you could have done that if engine.
Yeah, you're right. My engine would have to implement iEngine. Well, right now it doesn't know. No, this is saying when I create an instance of this class, which I haven't done yet, so you're a step ahead. So now if we want to say var my truck is going to equal a new truck. Whoops. Truck. And so it wants to take an engine, so I'm going to have to create an engine. And so I'm saying new engine. Oops, new engine. Let's do that. And you're right, it should not work, right? Because iEngine does not support or implement iEngine yet. Then we'll go fix that and see what happens. Make it a little different. I need to pass it into 4x4. So yeah, it's definitely 4x4. Why buy a truck if it's not a 4x4? And so here we go. So engine is not iEngine, not happy. So I don't know if it's going to matter that this is up here. It definitely might. It's not complaining so far. Oh, wait. Oh, I don't have my start. I don't have my methods. So let's see if it can. I wanted to see before if I did that, if there was that would be really cool. If it would create your methods for you.
It's possible.
I bet there's
if you
somewhere.
type a class from scratch that did that, maybe.
Where's code? Is there implement methods? So I haven't gotten there yet, but I'll definitely get there because that would be really nice. So there was a start, right? And it might not like it that the class. Let's go ahead and take that out of the equation and say that this is going to be before engine. So I don't have to know if that's what's causing my problem. Yeah.
Do we know if that matters?
No.
In regular JavaScript, it does. So a lot of times you're writing a module, so you're writing all this code and it just skips all through it until the user really calls you back. So then at the time code runs, it's run through everything that's been defined.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're running really, really top-down code, which is doing right here, it needs to be defined.
Yeah, cheating. I'm not gonna.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure how classes work.
Yeah,
I
same
know
as
in
the
functions,
variable.
what you would do.
With your variables down below,
Yeah.
you haven't been down there yet.
Sorry, stop. So
When you're talking about functions, figure out all those before you start using them. There's the whole order.
It needs it. Yeah, it needs the same. Just like the first class enemies. So.
We'll find out once this is working. We'll move it down. Yeah, no auto-completion.
It's still called script, TypeScript. It's,
No, I always, it's that classic JavaScript problem of like why some of this stuff doesn't work, and it's because it identifies all of the functions first, and then this, and then that. There's a very set pattern for what it substantiates, right?
yeah.
And now everybody's happy, right? So let's try to move this back down. See what happens. What the heck?
You switched. You got into the.
I did. I hit the double shift.
What's that?
Huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
double clutch the truck.
Yeah, double shift is like the, yeah, that's right. Looks like it might be happy. Let's see if we can actually get it to print. If you can print, then the interface can be below it. So we have engine.
Now you're saying.
Oh, and it's saying this is happy right now. Wow.
I wonder if you close your IDE down, bring it back up.
Well, let's just see if it can run. If it can run, it's good.
On your super statement, do you need to have the uppercase E or is it lowercase e because you define that somewhere else?
Say it again.
So on line 58, you're saying, the superset of this is the engine class, but isn't the engine class capital E?
No, this is the variable. So the constructor is calling, it's passing in an engine of type iEngine. So this is the variable name. And so I'm calling the super, which is, this is truck. It's calling the autos constructor with this variable that was passed in here on this constructor. And it's little e. And it's of type iEngine.
Okay. I think I understand.
Cool. So yeah, it's calling, see there's the auto up above. So the auto has a constructor that's taking a variable, and just the variable name, the parameter name that's coming in here is engine. And it's of type iEngine. And so this dot engine equals the one that you're passing in.
Yeah.
And so same thing here. But we didn't do that private here. We're just using essentially public accessible properties.
Okay.
So let's see if the truck is actually going to start for us. Come on, baby. Truck, start.
Oh, I see, because it's not smart enough to know that engine you're
Oh, I
referring
need to
there
do
needs to
truck
be
dot
part of it.
engine. Engine dot start. All right. Right? Everybody with me? Oh, undefined. Huh. Interesting. Oh, we printed the started. Oh, it doesn't return anything. It just does a console.log. Void. Yeah, it's a void. So it actually did exactly what it was supposed to be. It started there. I just wasn't. I needed to return starting, and then it would have worked. So. Yeah, and there's one other thing that was interesting. So if you have like an iAuto options and you were to create an auto now, and I don't know that I'll do all of this. I can't do it all quickly enough. I may not be able to. But it was kind of cool if the one other thing I saw, I thought this was really nice because you can actually then create your new object with an object literal, and it looks really cool. So let me try it. Last thing, we'll kind of wrap it up because I like to try and, you're welcome to stay longer, but I like to hold people past 8:30 unless they really want to. So if we say this takes an iAuto options instead, iAuto options. Now we're going to say it's going to take that. And then in here, I think we have to do, yeah, this dot, how does that work? It's, I'm not going to get that for you quickly enough. Yeah,
What's iOto options?
It's so it's an interface and it's defining all these properties. And so if I wanted to have like auto options taking an engine and all these different things, so I need to do this dot engine equals engine. I think this is right. And then I'm going to do this dot. What are the other things in there? Let me do this dot base price. I need to do all these things.
Isn't it engine.engine then? Line 48.
Is going to be it will be this dot engine. Yeah, but that wouldn't be engine. That would be options.
Yeah.
Options. So it's going to be options dot engine. Is that an iEngine? Yeah, it is. That's good. So if we have that, we're going to need that here. Probably a faster way to do this.
Is that question mark meaning like no?
It's optional. So that was one other thing I wanted to show you. So we don't want it there. It's optional on the interface. And it means also it should be optional here as well. Options.state, options.model, options.year. There we go. Every happy base price. Oh, I need this dot. Oh, and actually I have to define that for each other. Yeah, I wonder if I go. No, public's not going to work there. State is going to be a, what was it, a string? Are all these strings? Strings except year and base price. So it's too much typing.
You just do a couple times.
Base price was a number. State was a string. Gives a string. Model. String. Year is a number.
That's what we equals.
Oh, options dot. Yeah, it is equal. Thank you. There's a lot of work to show one little example. All right, so that's all happy. Our truck's not going to be happy, but we're just going to tell the truck to go away for right now. Go away too. Is everybody happy? Yeah, yeah. All right, good.